My name is Elisa, and I am 34 years old. For 10 years, I poured my heart into running Harvest Table, our family restaurant. I transformed it from a local spot to a Chicago landmark. Then one day, my parents called a meeting. They made my brother Oliver CEO and demoted me, after securing a $600,000 contract that would change everything. I packed my knives and walked away. When they desperately called begging for help, I simply said, "Talk to your CEO." If you are watching this video, drop a comment letting me know where you are from. Please like and subscribe to hear how I rebuilt my life after betrayal. The story of Harvest Table begins long before I was born. My grandparents immigrated to Chicago from Naples, Italy, in the early 1950s, bringing with them nothing but a suitcase of clothes and a mental cookbook filled with recipes passed down for generations. My father, Anthony, grew up watching my grandmother transform simple ingredients into masterpieces that brought neighbors from blocks away just for a taste. My mother, Sophia, came from a family of Northern Italian bakers experts at creating delicate pastries and hearty breads that sold out every morning at their small bakery in Milwaukee. They met at a food festival in 1985, fell in love over shared passions for authentic Italian cuisine, and married within 6 months. For years, they dreamed of opening their own restaurant, saving every penny while working for others. Finally, in 2003, they found a modest space in Chicago's West Loop neighborhood, an area that had yet to become the culinary hotspot it is today. They named it Harvest Table, envisioning a place where families would gather and share meals made with love and tradition. In the beginning, the restaurant was truly a family affair. Mom handled the front of house, greeting customers with her warm smile, while Dad commanded the kitchen. I was 14 when they opened, and Oliver was 17. From day one, the dynamics were clear. My parents beamed with pride watching Oliver charm customers, even though his actual contributions to the daily operations were minimal. Meanwhile, I washed dishes, prepped ingredients, and absorbed everything I could about the business. Oliver and I could not have been more different. While I was methodical, detail-oriented, and passionate about food, Oliver was charismatic, spontaneous, and more interested in the networking aspects of the business. He could talk anyone into anything, a skill my parents greatly admired. When he announced he wanted to attend Harvard Business School, they remortgaged the restaurant to help pay for his tuition, despite the business barely breaking even at that point. I still remember Dad saying, "Your brother needs this education. Someday he will take Harvest Table to heights we cannot even imagine." The unspoken implication was clear. Despite my dedication to the restaurant, Oliver was the presumed heir to the family business. While Oliver partied his way through an average academic career at Harvard, I worked tirelessly to perfect my own path. I attended the University of Chicago, majoring in restaurant management and culinary arts. I paid my own tuition by working 3 jobs: mornings at a bakery, evenings at Harvest Table, and weekends catering private events. Every semester I made the dean's list. Every summer I interned at prestigious restaurants across the country, learning from world-class chefs and managers. During college, I staged at Alinea under Grant Achatz, experiencing the precision and innovation of a 3-Michelin-star kitchen. I spent a summer learning wine service at the French Laundry and another mastering pasta making at Del Posto in New York. Each experience shaped my vision for what Harvest Table could become. Not just a neighborhood Italian restaurant, but a destination that honored tradition while embracing innovation. When I graduated summa cum laude, I received an offer to join the management team at one of New York's most acclaimed restaurant groups. The salary was double what I could make in Chicago, and the prestige was undeniable. Everyone expected me to take it. Everyone except me. Instead, I went home to my parents and pitched my vision for Harvest Table. I showed them detailed plans for menu development staff, training, marketing strategies, and financial projections. I outlined how we could elevate our family restaurant while maintaining its heart and soul. My father looked impressed, but uncertain. My mother smiled and patted my hand. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, Elisa," she said. "But this business is complicated. Maybe work with us for a few years. First, then we can consider some of your ideas." It was frustrating, but I accepted. After all, this was my family, my heritage. I believed that with time my dedication would prove my worth. Meanwhile, Oliver graduated with his MBA and immediately headed to San Francisco to join a tech startup. "Restaurants are too much work for too little return," he told me at his graduation. "The real money is in tech." For the next 8 years, he visited Chicago only for holidays, always bringing stories of his exciting life in California, the celebrities he met, the deals he almost closed. My parents hung on his every word, even as Harvest Table struggled to stay afloat those first few years. I stayed, taking a position as assistant manager, officially reporting to my mother, but increasingly handling her responsibilities as well. The hours were long, the pay was modest, but I was where I wanted to be. I had a vision for Harvest Table, and I was determined to bring it to life, with or without my family fully believing in me. Each night after closing, I would sit alone at the bar, analyzing the day's performance, planning improvements, and dreaming of the future. I knew every inch of that restaurant, every creak in the floorboards, every regular customer's preferences, every recipe in our menu. Harvest Table was more than a business to me. It was my heart, my identity, my future. Little did I know that my dedication would lead to a decade of success only to end with the deepest betrayal from the people I trusted most. The transition from assistant manager to effectively running Harvest Table happened gradually over my first 2 years. My mother began to step back from daily operations, citing fatigue and a desire to focus on developing new dessert offerings. My father remained head chef, but increasingly relied on me to handle vendor, relationships, staff management, and financial decisions. My first major challenge came when Luigi, our cantankerous but talented sous chef who had been with my parents since opening day, threatened to quit when I suggested updating some of our classic dishes. Standing in the kitchen during a heated pre-service meeting, Luigi waved a knife dramatically. "Who are you to change recipes that have been in your family for generations?" he demanded, his thick Italian accent intensifying with emotion. "Just because you have a fancy degree does not mean you understand tradition." Rather than backing down, I invited him to a private cooking session after hours. I prepared 2 versions of our signature ossobuco, the traditional version, and my updated recipe that incorporated local seasonal ingredients and modern presentation. Blindfolded, I had him taste both. When he grudgingly admitted that my version had more depth of flavor while respecting the original, I knew I had won not just his approval, but his respect. "You have your grandmother's palate," he conceded, which from Luigi was the highest compliment possible. With that pivotal victory, I began implementing changes throughout the restaurant. I refreshed our menu, seasonally keeping beloved classics, but introducing new dishes that showcased local Midwestern ingredients with Italian techniques. Our vegetable supplier, a family farm 30 miles outside Chicago, became a key partner, and I built our menu around their harvests, truly embodying our name, Harvest Table. The physical space needed attention too. Working with a limited budget, I redesigned the dining room, replacing the heavy dark furniture with custom tables made by a local woodworker using reclaimed barnwood. I opened up the space between tables, reducing our seating from 60 to 50, which counterintuitively increased our revenue, as the more comfortable atmosphere encouraged longer stays and higher per-table spending. The renovation increased our capacity for private events, which soon became a significant revenue stream. Staff training became my passion. I implemented a comprehensive education program with weekly wine tastings, producer visits, and cooking demonstrations. Our servers could speak knowledgeably about every ingredient, every technique, every wine pairing. This elevated service led to higher tips, which reduced turnover and created a stable professional team that guests came to know and trust. The results spoke for themselves. Within 5 years under my leadership, our revenue had increased by 200%. Our weekends were booked solid 3 months in advance. Chicago Tribune awarded us 4 stars, calling Harvest Table a perfect marriage of Italian tradition and Midwestern hospitality. Food and Wine featured us in their Best Family-Owned Restaurants in America issue, and I was named Rising Star Restaurateur by Chicago Magazine. Behind every successful change was countless hours of work. I arrived at 6 each morning to meet delivery trucks and left after midnight reviewing the day's numbers. I worked every holiday, covered for 6 staff, and learned every position in the restaurant. When our dishwasher quit unexpectedly before a fully booked Saturday night, I rolled up my sleeves and worked the dish pit myself until we found a replacement. Through it all, my parents accepted the success with surprising passivity. They enjoyed the increased profits and recognition, but rarely acknowledged the source. The restaurant is doing well, they would tell friends, as if Harvest Table were a plant that had simply decided to bloom on its own. My father eventually stepped back from daily cooking, though he still came in to prepare special dishes and check on operations. My mother focused on community outreach and maintaining relationships with longtime customers. Both were proud of the restaurant's growth, but there was always a sense that they were waiting for something more. Someone more. That someone was Oliver, who remained notably absent through all our success. His twice-yearly visits became a disruption rather than a help. He would sweep in, criticize our outdated point-of-sale system, suggest we pivot to fast casual because it was trending in San Francisco, or insist we needed a cocktail program featuring exclusively spirits made by his friends, startups. "You are thinking too small, Elisa," he would say, glancing around our bustling, profitable restaurant. "You need to scale this concept open in 10 cities in 5 years. I would patiently explain the realities of restaurant economics, the importance of consistent execution, and the value of mastering one location before expanding. He would roll his eyes and turn to our parents, who invariably looked concerned that I was not embracing my brother's visionary ideas. Meanwhile, I built relationships throughout Chicago's food community that proved invaluable. I joined the board of the Chicago Restaurant Association, where I advocated for independent restaurants and helped create a mentorship program for young chefs. I collaborated with other restaurant owners to create a purchasing collective that negotiated better prices from suppliers. I established a scholarship at my alma mater for students interested in sustainable restaurant management. All these efforts enhanced Harvest Table's reputation and created a network of support that would later prove crucial. Lauren Wilson, the founder of Blue Sky Events, one of Chicago's premier event planning companies, became both a professional contact and personal friend through these connections. Little did I know that this relationship would eventually lead to both the biggest opportunity and the most painful turning point of my career. Throughout these years of success, my personal life took a back seat to the restaurant. I dated occasionally, but relationships inevitably faltered under the weight of my commitment to Harvest Table. My closest friend, Maria, who owned a small bakery 3 blocks from the restaurant, often urged me to create more balance in my life. "The restaurant will not love you back, Elisa," she would warn during our rare Sunday brunches together, the only time I allowed myself a few hours away from work. I always laughed off her concern, Harvest Table is not just work to me. It is my future, my legacy. I truly believed that one day my parents would recognize my dedication and formalize my role as the leader of the business I had effectively been running for years. I never imagined that after a decade of pouring my heart, soul, and identity into Harvest Table, everything would change in a single devastating meeting. The first hint of the seismic shift to come arrived on an ordinary Tuesday in April. I was in the office reviewing applications for a new pastry chef when my mother burst in her face, flushed with excitement. "Oliver just called. His company has been acquired, and he is coming home to Chicago next week." Her joy was palpable, as if announcing the return of a conquering hero. I forced a smile while mentally reorganizing the staff schedule to accommodate the inevitable disruption of Oliver's visit. "That is great, Mom. How long is he staying this time?" Her answer sent a chill through me. "Oh, he is moving back for good," he says. "It is time to reconnect with his roots and family." Only later did I learn the truth. Oliver's startup had failed spectacularly after burning through $20 million in venture capital with no viable product. His acquisition was a face-saving fire sale of the company's few assets, leaving Oliver with a fraction of his expected windfall and a desperate need for his next career move. Oliver arrived the following Monday driving a leased Tesla and wearing Silicon Valley casual that looked oddly out of place in our traditional restaurant. He hugged me briefly before launching into stories about the incredible exit of his company and his strategic decision to return to Chicago. "I thought I would help out around here for a while," he said, gesturing vaguely around the restaurant I had built into a success. "Share some of my business expertise." Within days, helping out revealed itself as a systematic campaign to insert himself into every aspect of operations. He began attending our daily staff meetings, interrupting my directions to suggest more efficient approaches that ignored the practical realities of restaurant service. He cornered our bartender to propose an app-based ordering system that would have reduced human interaction, the very heart of our hospitality approach. Most concerning was my parents' reaction. They invited Oliver to our weekly financial reviews, historically private discussions between the three of us. During these meetings, they increasingly turned to Oliver for input, nodding thoughtfully at his suggestions, while dismissing my proven approaches as conservative or traditional. When I pointed out that Oliver had zero experience in restaurant management, my father patted my hand condescendingly. "Your brother has a Harvard MBA, Elisa. He understands business at a level that restaurant people simply cannot grasp." The implication was clear and cutting. Despite transforming Harvest Table from a struggling neighborhood joint to a nationally recognized destination, I was still just restaurant people in their eyes. As Oliver's influence grew, my authority diminished. Staff began coming to me with reports of Oliver contradicting my instructions, promising raises I had not approved, and suggesting menu changes directly to the kitchen. The confusion was affecting morale and service quality. For the first time in years, we received several negative reviews online, with guests noting inconsistent experiences and a sense that the restaurant was losing its soul. Amid this turmoil, a remarkable opportunity emerged. Lauren Wilson, of Blue Sky Events, contacted me about a potential partnership that would transform our business. Blue Sky had just signed a 3-year contract to manage all corporate events for Midwest Financial Group, a Fortune 500 company headquartered in Chicago. They needed an exclusive catering partner for these events, which included quarterly board meetings, client appreciation dinners, and employee recognition events. "Elisa, I immediately thought of Harvest Table," Lauren explained over coffee. "Your food quality is consistent, your team is professional, and your Italian-inspired menu has broad appeal while still feeling special. This could be worth around $600,000, over the 3 years, possibly more, with additional client events. The potential contract was nearly double our current annual revenue from private events. More importantly, it offered stability and predictability in an industry notorious for its volatility. I spent weeks preparing a comprehensive proposal, working directly with our chef to create sample menus for various event types, developing staffing plans, and calculating precise costings to ensure profitability, while offering competitive pricing. Lauren and her team visited Harvest Table for a series of tastings and planning meetings. Each time I ensured everything was perfect from the food presentation to the service timing. We discussed dietary restrictions, seasonal menu rotations, and logistics for everything from intimate executive dinners to large-scale receptions. By early June, we had refined the proposal to meet all of Blue Sky's requirements. Lauren indicated that Midwest Financial Group was impressed with our offerings and that we were the frontrunner for the contract. All that remained was a final presentation to their executive team and the formal signing scheduled for the following week. The night before I was to share this tremendous news with my parents, I stayed late at the restaurant, meticulously preparing a presentation that outlined the opportunity, our readiness to execute, and the transformative impact this contract would have on Harvest Table's future. I created financial projections, staffing plans, and even mock-ups of specialized menus. As I worked, I felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. This contract was the culmination of years of relationship-building, quality focus, and strategic planning. It represented not just financial success, but validation of my vision for Harvest Table. Surely, I thought this achievement would finally cement my position as the rightful leader of our family business. I had no idea that rather than celebrating my success, my parents were already planning to use it as a platform for Oliver's takeover. The contract that should have been my crowning achievement was about to become the backdrop for my greatest humiliation. The morning of what would become the most pivotal day in my professional life began like any other. I arrived at Harvest Table at 6, reviewed the delivery manifests, and confirmed preparations for a private lunch party of 20. The contract presentation materials for my parents were neatly organized in a folder on my desk, ready for our scheduled family meeting at 2 during the afternoon lull between lunch and dinner service. At 1:30, Oliver strode into my office without knocking, dressed in a tailored suit that seemed excessive for a family meeting about restaurant business. "Big day today," he said, with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Mom and Dad are excited about the meeting." Something in his tone triggered alarm bells. "Did they tell you what the meeting is about?" He shrugged, examining his manicured nails. "We have been talking about the future of Harvest Table quite a bit lately. I am sure today will bring some positive changes." Before I could press him further, he checked his watch and left, saying he needed to make a few calls before the meeting. His cryptic comments left me unsettled, but I pushed aside my concerns and gathered my materials, confident that the Blue Sky contract would be cause for celebration. The private dining room had been set for the meeting with unusual formality. My parents sat together on one side of the table, leaving Oliver and me to sit across from them. As I took my seat, I noticed a stack of printed documents in front of my father bearing the logo of their personal attorney. My mother smiled nervously. "Elisa, thank you for joining us. Your father and I have been doing a lot of thinking about Harvest Table and its future." My father cleared his throat. "As you know, this restaurant has been our life's work. We are incredibly proud of its success, but we are getting older and thinking about succession planning." I nodded, opening my folder. Actually, that ties perfectly into what I wanted to discuss today. The opportunity with Blue Sky Events represents a new chapter for Harvest Table that would secure our financial future and legacy. My father held up his hand. Before you continue, we have an announcement. After careful consideration, we have decided to implement a new management structure for Harvest Table. Oliver will be taking on the role of Chief Executive Officer effective immediately. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked from my father to Oliver, who sat with a self-satisfied smile, then to my mother, who avoided my gaze. I do not understand. I managed to say, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. I have been running this restaurant successfully for 10 years. And we appreciate your efforts, my mother interjected quickly. You will still have an important role as culinary director, reporting to Oliver. This allows you to focus on what you do best, the food and service, while Oliver brings his business expertise to grow the company strategically. Oliver leaned forward. Elisa, this is a positive move for everyone. With my Harvard MBA and tech industry experience, I can take Harvest Table to the next level. We are talking expansion, multiple locations, maybe even packaged food products in grocery stores. The absurdity of the situation might have been comical if it were not so devastating. Oliver, who had contributed nothing to the restaurant's success and had been back in Chicago for barely a month, was now being handed control of the business I had built. On what basis are you making this decision? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Harvest Table has seen 200% growth under my leadership. We have received national recognition, built a loyal customer base, and now secured a contract worth $600,000. My father shifted uncomfortably. This is not about your performance, Elisa. It is about bringing fresh perspectives to the business. Oliver has experience with scalable business models and modern management techniques. Experience running a failed tech startup, I said sharply, the truth finally spilling out. Let us be honest about why Oliver is really back in Chicago. Oliver's smile faltered slightly before he recovered. My company had a successful exit that allowed me to pursue new opportunities. I chose to come back and help the family business rather than accepting several lucrative offers in California. My mother reached across the table toward me. Darling, this is also about tradition. In Italian families, the son typically takes over the family business. Your father and I always envisioned Oliver leading Harvest Table eventually. The casual sexism of her statement stung almost as much as the betrayal itself. 10 years of dedication reduced to an outdated cultural expectation that the son, regardless of merit or contribution, was the natural heir. And what about the blue sky contract? I asked. The contract that I secured, that I negotiated, that is ready to be signed next week. That is excellent work, my father said, his tone suggesting he was offering a generous concession. Oliver will of course take the lead on finalizing the details, but you can attend the signing to ensure a smooth transition for the client. Oliver nodded magnanimously. I have already reviewed your preliminary materials. The concept is solid, though I see several opportunities for optimization in the pricing structure. I stared at him in disbelief. You reviewed my materials without my knowledge or permission. My father frowned. Elisa, there is no need for that tone. We are family, and this is a family business. There are no secrets here. I took a deep breath, trying to process the magnitude of what was happening. So to be clear, after 10 years of building this restaurant into what it is today, I am being demoted to make way for Oliver, who has no restaurant experience whatsoever, purely because he is your son. Not demoted, my mother corrected quickly. Repositioned to leverage your strengths. The new title comes with a 10% raise. As if money could compensate for this profound disrespect and betrayal. As if my dedication to Harvest Table had been merely transactional rather than deeply personal. Oliver stood up, buttoning his jacket. I think we should announce this to the staff before dinner service. I have prepared some remarks about our exciting new direction. He had prepared remarks. This had been planned for days, possibly weeks behind my back. While I had been perfecting the blue sky proposal and managing the daily operations of the restaurant, my family had been plotting to push me aside. In that moment, something fundamental shifted inside me. The restaurant that had been my home, my passion, my identity for a decade, suddenly felt foreign. The family I had worked tirelessly to please and make proud revealed that no amount of success would ever be enough to overcome the simple fact that I was not the son they had wanted to take over. As Oliver left to gather the staff, my parents began explaining the legal details of the new arrangement. Their words washed over me without registering. My mind was already elsewhere, calculating options, envisioning a future I had never before considered a future, without Harvest Table, without the crushing weight of unmet familial expectations. By the time Oliver stood before our assembled staff later that afternoon, proudly announcing his new role to their shocked and confused faces, my decision was already made. That night, after the last customer left and the kitchen was cleaned, I sat alone at the bar of Harvest Table. The restaurant looked different somehow, as if the familiar space had transformed into something alien overnight. For 10 years, I had opened and closed this restaurant, knowing every inch of it, feeling a sense of ownership and pride that transcended my lack of legal claim to the business. Now, it felt like a beautiful museum exhibit of my past life, something to be observed but no longer touched. I poured myself a glass of the Barolo we reserved for special occasions, and called Maria the only person who might understand the magnitude of what had happened. They did what Maria's voice rose in outrage as I recounted the day's events. After everything you have done for that restaurant, after the Blue Sky contract, apparently having a Harvard MBA trumps a decade of actual success in the industry. I said, surprising myself with the bitter edge in my voice. And being the son rather than the daughter does not hurt either. What are you going to do? Maria asked, cutting straight to the question I had been turning over in my mind for hours. I have 3 options as I see it, I replied, my analytical side taking over. 1, I can accept the demotion, swallow my pride, and try to make it work under Oliver's leadership. 2, I can fight back, maybe consult a lawyer about my rights given my role in building the business. Or 3, I can walk away and start fresh somewhere else. And which way are you leaning? Maria knew me well enough to suspect I had already decided. I took a long sip of the Barolo, savoring its complex notes of cherry tar and roses. I keep coming back to something my grandmother used to say. Mai tornare dove non sei stata apprezzata. Never return to where you are not appreciated. So you are leaving. It was not a question. Yes, I said the word, bringing both pain and a strange sense of relief. I cannot stay and watch Oliver dismantle everything I have built. And more than that, I cannot pretend that this betrayal did not happen. Some broken things cannot be repaired. We talked until past midnight, discussing logistics possibilities and the emotional fallout of my decision. Maria offered her spare bedroom until I figured out next steps, an offer I gratefully accepted. By the time we hung up, I had a rough plan for my exit. I arrived at the restaurant at 5 the next morning, 2 hours before anyone else would arrive. In the quiet solitude, I wrote a brief, professional letter of resignation, effective immediately. I packed up my personal belongings from the office, leaving behind all files related to restaurant operations. Though tempted to take copies of the recipes I had developed, I left them too. They belonged to Harvest Table, even if Harvest Table no longer belonged to me in any meaningful way. My one concession was making a copy of the Blue Sky contract proposal. I had no intention of using it, but it represented hundreds of hours of my work, and I could not bear to leave it entirely in Oliver's incapable hands. As I was finishing, Luigi arrived early as he always did to begin bread production. His expression when he saw me packing spoke volumes. "So it is true," he said quietly. "The staff has been texting all night about the new CEO. I did not want to believe it." "It is true," I confirmed, closing my now empty desk drawer. "And I am leaving." Luigi shook his head slowly. "This place will not be the same without you, Elisa. You are its heart." His words threatened to break my composure. "Take care of yourself, Luigi, and maybe consider updating your resume. I suspect changes are coming that you might not enjoy." By 7, the management team had arrived for the morning meeting. Instead of participating as usual, I asked for a few minutes of their time. "I want to thank each of you for your dedication and partnership over the years," I said, looking at the confused faces of people who had become my second family. "Effective today, I am resigning from Harvest Table. This was not an easy decision, but it is the right one for me." The shock and dismay in the room was palpable. Questions tumbled out. Was it because of Oliver? Could they change my mind? What would happen to the restaurant? "Harvest Table is in new hands now," I said simply. "I wish you all the best going forward." I hugged each of them, promising to stay in touch, though we all knew that professional boundaries would make that difficult. Several were openly crying, including our front-of-house manager, who had been with me since almost the beginning. By the time my parents and Oliver arrived at 9, word had spread throughout the staff. The atmosphere was tense and somber, a stark contrast to the celebratory mood Oliver had clearly expected for his first official day as CEO. My father called me into his office, my mother and Oliver following. I handed him my resignation letter, without preamble. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered, scanning the brief text. "You cannot just leave." "I can, and I am," I replied, my calm exterior masking the turmoil beneath. "My keys and security codes are on the desk. I have not taken any proprietary information, and I have prepared transition notes for all my current projects except the Blue Sky contract." Oliver stepped forward, alarm, replacing his usual smugness. "You cannot leave now. The Blue Sky signing is next week. Talk to Lauren Wilson directly," I advised. "I am sure she will be interested to hear about the management changes here. All the materials are in the proposal folder on the shared drive." My mother began to cry, which once would have devastated me, but now felt manipulative. "Elisa, please, we are family. We can work this out." "Family does not betray family," I said, the words coming out more calmly than I expected. "Family does not dismiss a decade of dedication and success. Family does not plan behind your back to replace you with someone unqualified for the role." My father's face reddened. "You are being emotional and unprofessional. If you walk out now, do not expect to come back when you cool down." I looked at him steadily. "I know my value. It is a pity none of you do." Without waiting for a response, I walked out of the office. At my station near the kitchen entrance, I collected my roll of professional knives. The set I had carefully built over years, each one chosen for specific tasks and maintained with meticulous care. These at least were undeniably mine. As I rolled the knife bag and secured it, I felt the weight of finality. These knives had been extensions of my hands, tools of creation and expression in the kitchen that had been my domain. Now they would come with me to whatever future awaited. I walked through the dining room one last time, nodding goodbye to the staff who watched in stunned silence. At the front door I paused for just a moment, allowing myself one final look at the restaurant I had loved so deeply. Then I stepped out into the bright June morning, the door closing behind me with a finality that felt both devastating and strangely liberating. As I walked away from Harvest Table, my knife roll slung over my shoulder like a soldier's pack. I experienced the disorienting sensation of having both lost everything and gained a new kind of freedom. For the first time in 10 years, my time was entirely my own. The question was, what would I do with it? The first 3 days after leaving Harvest Table passed in a blur of emotional extremes. I fluctuated between questioning my decision, grieving what felt like the death of a dream, and experiencing unexpected moments of relief and possibility. Maria proved to be exactly the friend I needed, giving me space when I needed to process alone and providing distraction when the thoughts became too overwhelming. On the fourth day, my phone lit up with a call from Lauren Wilson. I had been expecting this. "Elisa," she said, when I answered her tone. Professional but warm. "I just had the most interesting meeting with your brother." "Former brother," I quipped, attempting humor to mask my discomfort. Lauren laughed. "Well, your former restaurant's new CEO, then." He presented himself as the point person for our contract moving forward. It was quite a surprise, especially since he seemed unfamiliar with about 70% of the details we had already finalized with you. I settled onto Maria's couch, uncertain how to respond. Part of me wanted to launch into a detailed explanation of what had happened, but professional ethics held me back. Despite everything, I did not want to be perceived as bitter or vindictive. "Management changes happen," I said carefully. "I am sure Oliver will get up to speed quickly." Perhaps Lauren replied, sounding unconvinced. But when I asked about the specialized menu accommodations for the board members' dietary restrictions, he looked at me like I was speaking another language. And the custom Italian regional wine pairings we spent weeks perfecting. He suggested switching everything to California wines because, and I quote, "they are more prestigious." I closed my eyes, picturing Oliver floundering through the meeting armed with MBA jargon, but none of the specific knowledge needed to execute the complex contract. Elisa Lauren continued, her voice softening. "I am calling as a friend as much as a business contact. What happened? One week you are walking me through every detail of a $600,000 contract, and the next you are gone, and your brother, who I have never met before, is telling me he is in charge." I gave her the condensed version of events, sticking to facts and avoiding emotional commentary. Lauren listened without interrupting, though I could hear her occasional sounds of disbelief. "That is outrageous," she said when I finished. "After everything you built there, I am so sorry, Elisa." "Thank you. I am still processing it all." There was a brief pause before Lauren asked the question I had been dreading. "So is there any chance you might return to Harvest Table, or at least consult on our contract? The Midwest financial team specifically approved the proposal based on the sample meals you prepared." This was the moment of truth. I could offer to help to save the contract that I had worked so hard to secure. It would be the professionally responsible thing to do, perhaps even the kind thing for the staff who remained at Harvest Table. Instead, I found myself saying, "I am afraid you will need to work directly with Oliver on this. He is the CEO now. I suggest you talk to him about any concerns." "I see," Lauren replied, disappointment evident in her voice. "Well, to be completely transparent, Elisa, this raises significant concerns for us. The proposal we approved was built on your vision and execution. Without you involved, I will need to bring this change to my client's attention." "I understand," I said, meaning it. In her position, I would do the same. After we hung up, I sat motionless, processing the implications of the conversation. I had effectively sealed the fate of the Blue Sky contract. While I had not directly sabotaged it, my refusal to remain involved would likely lead to its collapse. The rational part of me felt a twinge of guilt for the staff who would miss out on the additional work and income. But a deeper part recognized that this was not my responsibility to fix. My family had made their choice, and now they would face the consequences. 3 days later, my prediction came true. Maria forwarded me an email from a former colleague still working at Harvest Table. Blue Sky Events had officially terminated negotiations with Harvest Table and signed with Provenance, a competing restaurant group, for the Midwest financial contract. The email described the chaos that had followed Oliver, calling an emergency staff meeting to blame the loss on Elisa's poor documentation, and my parents looking shell-shocked at the sudden reversal of fortune. That evening the calls and texts began, first from my mother, then my father, and finally Oliver himself. I let them all go to voicemail, not yet ready to engage. My mother's message was tearful, asking me to please call back and help them understand what went wrong. My father's was more direct, suggesting that I had an obligation to help fix the misunderstanding with Blue Sky. Oliver's message started professionally before devolving into thinly veiled accusations that I had deliberately sabotaged the contract. I deleted them all without responding. The following days brought more messages, increasing in both frequency and desperation. Oliver sent an email with the subject line, "Urgent Blue Sky Contract Rescue Plan," outlining his strategy to win back the business and requesting my immediate assistance. My father left a voicemail, suggesting that my emotional reaction had gone far enough and it was time to act like a professional. My mother texted hourly, alternating between guilt trips about family loyalty and assurances that we could work out a better arrangement for my role. Meanwhile, news traveled quickly through Chicago's tight-knit restaurant community. Former vendors called to check on me and share updates about Harvest Table. The changes had been swift and significant. Oliver had terminated our relationships with several local farmers, opting for larger, cheaper suppliers. He had implemented a new computerized ordering system that was causing chaos during service. Most distressingly, he had begun pushing out longtime staff members who questioned his decisions, replacing them with inexperienced friends willing to work for lower wages. The restaurant's online reviews, once consistently 4 and 5 stars, began to show a troubling pattern of complaints, inconsistent food quality, disorganized service, and a loss of the warm, familial atmosphere that had been Harvest Table's hallmark. Regular customers who requested their favorite servers were told those staff members no longer worked there. Special dietary accommodations that I had always handled personally were now being overlooked or mishandled. 6 days after the Blue Sky contract fell through, the Chicago Tribune published a follow-up to their previous glowing review. The headline said it all: "Management changes bring troubling decline at Harvest Table." The reviewer noted that the restaurant that had once exemplified the perfect balance of tradition and innovation now felt corporate and soulless, with food quality suffering noticeably. That evening, Oliver's texts turned threatening. "Your sabotage is destroying this family's legacy," he wrote. "If you do not help us fix this situation, we may need to explore legal options regarding your interference with business relationships." I finally broke my silence with a single reply. I resigned from my position. I have not contacted any Harvest Table clients, vendors, or partners. Any problems you are experiencing are the result of your own management decisions. Please do not contact me again unless it is through a lawyer. I then blocked his number, along with my parents' numbers. The constant barrage of guilt and blame was preventing me from healing and moving forward. While the rational part of me recognized that Harvest Table's struggles were not entirely my goal or responsibility, I could not deny the complicated satisfaction I felt seeing my contributions so clearly validated by their absence. As the weeks passed, reports from former colleagues painted an increasingly dire picture. Dinner reservations once booked weeks in advance were now readily available same day. The private dining room that had once hosted corporate events and family celebrations sat empty most nights. Staff turnover reached unprecedented levels, with some positions remaining unfilled as Oliver cut costs to compensate for declining revenue. The restaurant that had been my heart and soul for a decade was dying a slow, painful death under Oliver's leadership. The tragedy was that it had been entirely preventable. All my family had needed to do was value the dedication, expertise, and passion I had brought to Harvest Table for 10 years. Instead, they had chosen the Harvard MBA and the son over the daughter who had actually built the business. And now they were all paying the price for that decision. The first month after leaving Harvest Table was the hardest. Without the structure of 16-hour workdays and the clear sense of purpose the restaurant had provided, I felt adrift. My identity had been so thoroughly intertwined with Harvest Table that separating myself from it left me questioning who I was without it. Sleep, which had always been a luxury limited to 5 or 6 hours a night, now stretched into restless 9 or 10-hour stretches, where I would wake disoriented, reaching for order tickets that were not there. My hands, accustomed to constant motion and creation, felt useless. Even my palate seemed dulled food, tasting like little more than fuel rather than the vibrant expression of culture and craftsmanship it had always been. Maria suggested I see a therapist, and though initially resistant, I eventually agreed. Dr. Patterson helped me recognize the grief I was experiencing, not just for the loss of my job, but for the shattering of family relationships and the death of a future I had believed in completely. She introduced me to mindfulness practices that helped ground me when the anger and hurt threatened to overwhelm my rational thinking. Your family betrayed you, she acknowledged, in one particularly breakthrough session. But you do not have to let that betrayal define your future. Your talent, your passion, your vision, those are still yours. They did not take those from you. Slowly, I began to rediscover parts of myself that had been neglected during my years of single-minded focus on Harvest Table. I volunteered teaching cooking classes at a community center, finding unexpected joy in the wide-eyed wonder of children discovering the magic of transforming raw ingredients into delicious meals. I attended farmers markets as a customer rather than a buyer, connecting with the growers whose produce I had featured on our menus for years. 3 months after my departure, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was Lauren Wilson from Blue Sky Events. "Elisa," she said warmly, "I have been thinking about you. Are you open to meeting for coffee?" We met the following day at a small cafe far from Harvest Table's neighborhood. Lauren wasted no time getting to the point. "I will be blunt. Provenance is not working out for the Midwest Financial contract. Their execution lacks the personal touch and attention to detail you brought to the table. I would like to discuss an alternative arrangement directly with you." I was stunned. "But I do not have a restaurant anymore." Lauren smiled. "Not yet, but what if you did?" She proceeded to outline a proposal that took my breath away. Several of her clients, impressed with the sample menus and presentations I had created for the Blue Sky proposal, had expressed interest in backing a new restaurant venture with me at the helm. Lauren herself was willing to commit to a modified version of the original contract if I could establish a new operation within 6 months. "This is not charity, Elisa," she assured me, seeing my hesitation. "This is business. You proved your concept and your capabilities. The only missing piece was the physical restaurant, and that is something money can solve." That meeting marked the beginning of a whirlwind transformation. With Lauren's connections, I secured meetings with potential investors. To my surprise, many of Harvest Table's former regular customers were eager to participate, having witnessed the decline of their beloved restaurant under new management. A restaurant space became available just 5 blocks from Harvest Table, a location that felt both symbolically appropriate and practically strategic. I named the new restaurant Elisa's Table, reclaiming my identity and vision. The concept would honor the Italian traditions that formed my culinary foundation while embracing contemporary techniques and local ingredients. The design was warmer and more inviting than Harvest Table had become under Oliver's corporate makeover, with an open kitchen that put craftsmanship on display. Word of my new venture spread quickly through Chicago's restaurant community. Former staff from Harvest Table began reaching out asking to join the new team. Luigi, the cantankerous sous chef, who had initially resisted my changes but became my strongest kitchen ally, was among the first to call. "Harvest Table is not the same without you," he said gruffly. "Oliver knows nothing about food or people. When do you want me to start?" Within 4 months, we had assembled a core team, finalized the menu, and completed renovations. The opening night of Elisa's Table was covered by local media, with the Chicago Tribune food critic in attendance. The review, published 3 days later, awarded us 5 stars, praising the triumphant return of one of Chicago's most talented restaurateurs, and noting that the food spoke of passion, precision, and a clear vision that had been missing from her former establishment. 6 months after my unceremonious departure from Harvest Table, Elisa's Table was booked solid for dinner service 3 weeks in advance. The Blue Sky contract was securely in place, providing a stable foundation of catering revenue. More importantly, I had assembled a team that felt like family one, built on mutual respect and shared passion rather than obligation and unexamined tradition. I had not spoken to my parents or Oliver since blocking their numbers. Through the grapevine, I heard that Harvest Table was struggling financially, with rumors of possible closure circulating. While I took no joy in the staff's uncertainty, I could not deny a certain vindication in Oliver's failure. The restaurant that had been positioned for unprecedented success under my leadership was floundering under his proving, beyond doubt, whose vision had truly built the business. 7 months after opening Elisa's Table, I arrived early one morning to prep for a special event. As I approached the restaurant, I saw 2 familiar figures waiting by the door. My parents looked older than I remembered. My father's confident posture replaced by a slight stoop, my mother's face lined with worry. "Elisa," my mother said, her voice breaking slightly, "your restaurant is beautiful." I unlocked the door, considering whether to invite them in or ask them to leave. Curiosity won out. "Would you like some coffee?" Inside, we sat at the chef's table overlooking the immaculate kitchen. The silence stretched uncomfortably until my father finally spoke. "We made a terrible mistake," he said simply. "Harvest Table is failing. We might lose everything." "I am sorry to hear that," I replied, surprised to find I genuinely meant it. Despite everything, I took no pleasure in seeing my parents face financial ruin. Oliver left, my mother added. "Went back to California last month. Said the restaurant business was too difficult, not worth the effort." I could not help but laugh at the irony. Yes, building something successful does take effort, 10 years of it in my case. My father looked down at his hands. "We did not value what you built. We did not value you. Our old country thinking about sons and succession. It blinded us to what was right in front of us. You were the heart of Harvest Table, not just an employee." His admission, something I had wanted to hear for so long, landed with surprising hollowness. The validation came too late to heal the wounds their betrayal had inflicted. "What do you want from me?" I asked directly. They exchanged glances before my mother spoke. "We were hoping. Perhaps you would consider coming back, taking over Harvest Table again, saving it." The request was breathtaking in its audacity. After everything that had happened, they expected me to abandon my successful new venture to rescue them from the consequences of their own decisions. "I cannot do that," I said, keeping my voice gentle but firm. "Elisa's table is my home now, my future. I have investors, employees, and customers who believe in me and my vision. I will not abandon them." My father nodded slowly, acceptance settling over his features. "We understand. We just wanted to say we are sorry, and that we are proud of what you have built here." As they prepared to leave, I made an impulsive decision. "I cannot come back to Harvest Table, but I might be able to help you find a buyer, someone who would respect its history while bringing new energy. It would not be what it was, but it might survive in some form." The relief on their faces was palpable. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was a first step toward a new kind of relationship, one built on clear boundaries and earned respect rather than obligation and tradition. In the months that followed, I helped my parents negotiate the sale of Harvest Table to a young chef with a solid business plan and respect for the restaurant's legacy. I maintained a careful distance from my family, our interactions limited to necessary business discussions and occasional brief phone calls. The breach of trust had been too profound for an immediate return to closeness, but the open hostility had given way to a tentative, cautious rebuilding. Meanwhile, Elisa's table flourished beyond my most optimistic projections. We received a James Beard nomination for Best New Restaurant. Blue Sky Events renewed their contract for an additional 2 years at an increased value. Most importantly, I had created a workplace where talent was recognized and rewarded regardless of gender or family connections, where decisions were made transparently and where everyone contributed to our shared success. The deepest lesson from my journey was not about restaurant management or even family dynamics, but about self-worth. For years, I had sought validation from parents who were fundamentally incapable of seeing my true value. In walking away from Harvest Table, I had finally recognized that external validation would never be enough if I did not first value myself. I built Elisa's Table not just as a restaurant, but as a testament to the power of knowing your worth and having the courage to walk away when others fail to recognize it. In losing what I thought was everything, I found something far more valuable: the confidence to build something truly mine on my own terms. Sometimes walking away is not the end of your story. Sometimes it is just the beginning. Have you ever had to walk away from something you loved because you were not valued? How did you rebuild afterward? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences about finding strength through difficult times. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder of their own worth today. Thank you for being part of my journey. And remember, your value does not decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth.